Thank you for joining us here at SSH Live Episode 6. Going to be doing this every Tuesday, 6 p.m. Pacific Time. And we are going to get started here with our topic of the day. So we jumped over to way too early Offensive Rookie of the Year predictions. Yay, it's only week 6. And the first thing we're going to get into is a poll I put up on Twitter. And as you can see here, Justin Herbert ran away with a landslide amount compared to everybody else, coming in at over 60% of the votes for Offensive Rookie of the Year so far. But again, only 4 options, so I couldn't exactly put everybody up there. And when we get done with this, I will also be showing off who I believe is the Offensive Rookie of the Year. So, way too early Offensive Rookie of the Year predictions. All right, let's get rolling here. All right, so we are going to start off with the quarterback room. So here's what we're dealing with. Number 1 overall pick, Joe Burrow, Cincinnati Bengals. He has played in 6 games. He has started all 6 games. He has put up 1,617 passing yards, and then also with his 6 games, he's got a 1-5 record so far. 65.04 completion percentage, so just a hair over 65%. He's thrown for 6 touchdowns, 4 interceptions. He's lost 2 fumbles. 87 rush yards and 2 rushing touchdowns. So overall, he's attributed 8 touchdowns and 6 turnovers. Here's the problem that I see with Burrow is he plays in a brutal, absolutely brutal AFC North, and he's got to face the Steelers, the Ravens, and the Browns defenses twice each every year. 2 times a year he's got to play those guys. And you already saw what he did playing against the Bengals, or excuse me, playing against the Ravens to open the season. I mean, he just got obliterated. I don't see it ending well for him this year especially, and this was one of the things that I don't want to get too deep into this, but this is one of the things that I said from the get-go with drafting number 1 overall. Don't draft Joe Burrow. He's not the missing piece to the Bengals being a championship caliber team or even making a playoff run. Chase Young would have been a better option in my opinion, but we're not going to get into this. Joe Burrow, there's his stats, and it's going to get very, very tough for him going forward, especially when he gets into the thick of his schedule. The other quarterback that's actually seen some playing time, obviously, as we all know, Tua was just announced to be the starter once the Dolphins come back from their bye week. The number 6 overall pick, Justin Herbert, for the LA Chargers. Now, Justin's played in just 4 games. He's had 4 starts, and he's 0-4 to start with. 1,195 passing yards, just under 69% completion. 9 touchdowns, 3 interceptions, 1 fumble lost, 55 rush yards, and a rush touchdown. So he's attributed to 10 total touchdowns with only 4 turnovers. My opinion here is that he's got better stats than Burrow. Obviously 2 games less, but he's putting up more solid numbers. Now, Herbert was finally announced to be the guy moving forward, regardless of the health of Tyrod Taylor, which is a good thing because Anthony Lynn kind of, I wouldn't say botched it, but he kind of made his rookie quarterback feel less than stellar right out the gate when Herbert got his first start, and Anthony Lynn made the infamous "he's a backup for a reason" comment. Since then, they have not won a game, but Herbert has continued to shine despite some rather questionable play calling by Anthony Lynn. Now, the question is, can Anthony Lynn support him enough to win games? Because some of those poor decisions hindered them from getting a win and getting Justin Herbert's first pro win. But either way, his stats are telling you that he can do it. The defense has to be able to stop people, but also the ability to push the ball down the field, make the right play calls. Anthony Lynn has to choose to win games when possible versus choosing to not win the games, which, as odd as that sounds for a coach, that's something that they do have to consider. Moving on to the running backs, toting the rock. We've got CEH, Clyde Edwards-Helaire, running back for the Chiefs. So far, prior to last night, it was a little mediocre for Helaire, except for game 1. But last night's showing proved that he can run and he can move the ball. So after last night's updated stats, 505 rush yards on the season, 4.7 yards per carry, 1 touchdown, only 1 touchdown. I was a little shocked by that when I was looking into his stats. 177 receiving yards at an 8.4 yard per catch average. As I mentioned, a good chunk of his yardage was weeks 1 and 6. The only 2 weeks that he surpassed 100 yards. He put up, I think it was 105 in week 1, and then 160 plus last night. So right there alone is over half of his yards. So 200 he put up 260, almost 270 yards between those 2 games. So definitely over half of his yards. The rest of the games he was rather quiet. Now, one thing that I think could hinder his potential for Rookie of the Year, if you live under a rock, you might not have heard that Le'Veon Bell was added to the roster after the Jets released him. So Le'Veon Bell could be stealing some totes from Clyde. So I don't know if that's going to hurt him or help him, because they could run some 2-back sets. And Le'Veon Bell, as everybody knows, is an incredible receiving back. So that could open up Clyde for more carries and also some misdirection, which could lead to some very big plays by Clyde. It'll be interesting to see how they add Bell into the mix. My second back on the list here, Jonathan Taylor, running back for the Colts. So far, Taylor's eclipsed 360-plus rushing yards total, 367 at 4.1 yards per carry, 3 touchdowns, 162 receiving yards at 10.1 yards per catch. It's very clear now that Jonathan Taylor is the lead back in Indianapolis, especially after the injuries cleared the way for him. But he's done nothing but produce ever since he was put in a starting position. I don't believe he's passed 100 rushing yards in a game, but he has produced, as you can see, 4.1 yards per carry on a team that has to abandon the run a fair amount because they have not been playing real well, because Phillip Rivers likes to turn the ball over. So odd saying Phillip Rivers turning the ball over for the Colts. Might not ever get used to that. But Jonathan Taylor is a fantastic product for them to put on the field, and he will continue to do so as long as they trust him. So it'll be interesting to see how they handle touches when the rest of the running back stable comes back healthy, because the Colts have had several running backs over the last few years that have been able to produce. Marlon Mack last year. It'll be curious how they handle it when everybody's back healthy. Running back number 3 on the list was a surprise, James Robinson for the Jaguars. He also just over 360 rushing yards at 4.3 yards per carry, 3 touchdowns, 207 receiving yards at a 9 yard per catch average and 1 receiving touchdown. So he's attributed to 4 touchdowns total, which is just as much as the other 2 combined. James Robinson, again, like I said, a big surprise, massive surprise. Undrafted free agent. No Fournette on the team anymore because they released him, obviously. And James Robinson just stepped up. And he has been the biggest production back that they've got. Chris Thompson came in, couldn't take the ball away from him. James Robinson just, took the proverbial ball and ran with it, we'll call it. It'll be interesting, again, interesting to see how an undrafted free agent continues to produce. Kind of reminds me more of a Willie Parker-esque in terms of coming out of nowhere. And it would be fun to see him become a top 10 back in the NFL with the Jaguars, especially with the Jaguars struggling on offense and putting up points. So we'll see where James Robinson ends up in terms of stats come the end of the season. But definitely, like I said, came out of nowhere. Jumping over to the hands team, we've got our wide receivers, our pass catchers, the electric, the fun, the playmakers, the highlight reels. Starting it off, CeeDee Lamb, wide receiver, Dallas Cowboys. Lamb's put up 36 receptions, which is very good for a rookie. 497 receiving yards at 13.8 yards per catch, 2 touchdowns, and also he's running punt returns as well at 7.7 yards per. The question I have with CeeDee Lamb, especially after watching last night, now he had quite a bit of garbage time action last night. The question is, can the bad quarterback play hurt his value as far as production for the Offensive Rookie of the Year? Will he end up being a contender for it? Will he end up falling into mediocrity for the last half of the season? There's too much, and they've got a fair amount of talent on their team at wide receiver. They've got Amari Cooper, and they've got, Pollard is out of the backfield. Ezekiel Elliott's backup, and then the other kid that was drafted a couple years ago, who has played pretty dang well, especially last night. He had some big catches. The question though is, will Lamb be able to produce with mediocre quarterback play, especially if they have to turn to a Ben DiNucci at a JMU if Andy Dalton can't produce, or if Andy Dalton gets hurt? One of the biggest things that everybody's been talking about is, would the Cowboys trade for another quarterback? Would they go after Jameis Winston? Would they go after Matt Stafford? Would they go after Matt Ryan? Would they get blah, blah, blah? Could that help CeeDee Lamb? Absolutely could. But Andy Dalton is no slouch, and I know that quite well, being a fan of the AFC North, being a Pittsburgh Steelers fan, and seeing Andy Dalton twice a year for 10 years. I think that Andy Dalton could be fine with them in Dallas, provided the coaches and the coaching staff are not the problem, as some of the players alluded to today. But that remains to be seen. So it'll be interesting where they go moving forward, and what kind of production they're going to get out of their wide receivers. Justin Jefferson, wide receiver, Minnesota Vikings. So far this season, 28 receptions, 537 receiving yards, 19.2 yards per catch, and 3 touchdowns. This kid is a monster. Huge value, and has stepped up massively since week 3 when he got his expanded role. It looks like when you watch the kid play, the game has already slowed down for him, and everybody talks about what it means with the games, how the game slows down for player, meaning that it's all clicking for you, and it doesn't seem like it's going too fast for you to handle. He definitely seems that he has adapted early, and he can make massive plays. I would almost say that he reminds me almost Moss-esque with some of his catches. He can go up over top of people. He can run deep. He's great route runner. He can lose people on the field very easily, and it's fun to watch this kid play. If you haven't watched a Vikings game yet this season, I highly recommend watching Justin Jefferson, or even just watching some highlights of him from this season. He is an excellent wide receiver. So it'll be fun to see where he continues to play and continues to perform this season, provided the issues at quarterback don't continue and provided Kirk Cousins can continue to get him the ball. And here we go, Mr. Chase Claypool, wide receiver, Pittsburgh Steelers. Now, I know what you're going to say with this. Well, he's only got 17 receptions. Look at the other two guys, 28 and 36, but he's got 335 receiving yards, 19.7 yards per catch, which is higher than the other guys. And he's also attributed to 6 touchdowns this year. That's a big portion of why he's considered on this list. 4 receiving touchdowns, 2 rushing touchdowns. The Steelers typically don't rush rookie wide receivers onto the field. And with Claypool being such a monster that they couldn't deny the talent of this kid, they had to put him on the field. Joe Hayden said it before the season started that this kid is a problem. And when Joe Hayden, a lockdown corner, says that a young wide receiver is a problem, you better listen. He was not wrong. Chase Claypool has been a playmaker. He's been electric. He can go up over top of people. He can sidestep people. He can go around people. He can outmaneuver people. He's got the complete package. He's too talented to not get more snaps. And he's already being compared to a Calvin Johnson type of player. They've already nicknamed him Mapletron, which is hilarious. He's actually even released his own apparel that says Mapletron on it with the Decepticon logo and the maple leaf, the Canadian maple leaf. I am definitely looking forward to watching this kid's future. He's going to end up becoming the #1 receiver in Pittsburgh, so they can bump Juju back out to the slot. And Chase Claypool's just so much of a monster. Good luck stopping him. A couple of guys that I didn't add onto this list that are in the hunt, but not really the guys yet, are T. Higgins, wide receiver for the Bengals, Laviska Shenault Jr., wide receiver for the Jaguars, and Jerry Jeudy, wide receiver for the Broncos. And Jeudy, I think, could potentially be a sleeper in all of this and come out of nowhere, leading the wide receivers once everybody's back healthy in Denver. All right, so here is my rankings for where I've got these rookies ranked. If somebody were to come to me and ask where I think these rookies should be ranked as of today, who's your rookie of the year, this is where I've got everybody. Starting off, #1, undeniable, Justin Herbert. He has filled in fantastically for Tyrod Taylor after Taylor got hurt. Now, I say this tongue-in-cheek because I'm also a big Easton Stick fan, being that I'm a former North Dakota State guy. And I think that Easton Stick could have done quite well for the Chargers as well. But Justin Herbert came in, had a chance, took it, and ran with it, and he ain't looking back. That kid is electric. I think he's playing better than he did when he was in college. As things progress for him and as he can read defenses better and as he can make some better decisions and as he learns and grows, he could end up being a Peyton Manning-esque type of quarterback that it's very tough to get around the Chargers for the next decade. So it'll be fun to see where his career takes him. #2 right now, as of last night, Clyde Edwards-Helaire. I would have probably had Helaire lower, and I actually did have him lower. But last night changed that for me with his breakout performance. Last night was really where he took command of the offense as far as running the ball and really showed that the Chiefs didn't need to go out and get Le'Veon Bell and that his role should not change going forward. So I had to move Clyde Edwards-Helaire up to #2 after last night. #3, Joe Burrow. I don't think that Joe Burrow is overrated. In fact, I think he, at this point, might even be a little underrated. And I say that, again, we'll call it tongue-in-cheek, and mostly because he plays in the AFC North, and he's going to get brutalized for quite some time. So Joe Burrow coming in and being 1-5 isn't shocking. The Bengals were far away from being a contender, and Joe Burrow was not the missing piece for the Bengals, and so his play has kept them in games or coming back into games, but he's not going to help them win games yet until they can get some semblance of the offense to steady, and also their defense has to stop people, which is where Chase Young would have come into play. Whoop. Wrong button. Number 4, Justin Jefferson, wide receiver for the Vikings. Again, I put Jefferson on here above the other wide receivers, and mostly because he's already shown that he can be very productive and he can take a game and take it over. He's done that twice now in the last 4 games, where he has literally just dominated. It's definitely going to be fun watching his career develop. And as I said, he's got that Mosk-esque type of mentality, go up over top. You can beat him deep, can beat him on a number of different ways. So Justin Jefferson definitely right now has my number 4 spot. And then number 5, Chase Claypool. I have him here edging out CeeDee Lamb, and a lot of that has to do with I believe CeeDee Lamb's going to be hindered by the Cowboys' offense, whereas Chase Claypool is on an offense where there's a lot of weapons, but they're moving the ball a lot, and it's going to be very tough for teams to double him, and he's going to end up just being an absolute stud for him, especially when he is the number 1 wide receiver. So those are my top 5 for my offensive rookies of the year: Herbert, Edwards-Helaire, Burrow, Jefferson, and Claypool.